Good afternoon. I'll call this meeting to order. I need a mover and a seconder to move into closed session, please. Moved by Counselor Neal, second by Counselor Armstrong. All in favor? Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is David McHugh. I'm the acting deputy mayor. The mayor sent his regrets. Therefore, I will be filling in as chair tonight for this November the 1st council meeting. I would ask at this time that you all rise, remain standing for the Indigenous Land Acknowledgement Statement and our national anthem. Thank you.
We begin this meeting by acknowledging that Quinte West is on Indigenous land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. We thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Long before today, there have been Indigenous peoples who have been the stewards of this place. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and the Mohawks of the Bay of Quinte First Nation. This territory is covered by numerous treaties. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contribution of the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening this community in particular, and our province and country as a whole. This acknowledgement serves as recognition of the contributions and historical significance of Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island and demonstrates our collective commitment to meet the promises and address the challenges of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission within our community.
Thank you. Again, I'd like to welcome you here tonight. A little change in the weather. I see the little ghosts and goblins got a little taste of winter last night, along with all the rest of us, and I hope you all had a pleasant evening. And I would remind you, especially just after having listened to the national anthem, that coming up in a few days, November the 11th, if you can all get out to Cenotaph, we're here for the grace of God and for the fact that we live in the society we live in today because there were people who gave their lives to support us. And every day I give thanks to the armed forces and so thrilled that we get a free air show here every day. Any announcements? Any members of council have any special announcements tonight, or any members of staff? I'm sorry, Councillor Reid, please.
Thank you very much. It was just a slight reminder to everyone that's listening that the memory tree boards in Frankfurt Tourist Park that are on display for the month of December. The timeline is this Monday, November the 6th. That's the last day that memory tree names will be taken. So if you are interested, please go to Medill's Home Hardware or the Municipal Building in Frankfurt to make sure that your names get on the boards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you. I'd like to acknowledge the 100-year anniversary banners have started to be hung up around town, and they look great. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to ask Director Angelo. I've seen some reports with regard to our fall leaf pickup. Maybe he could let us, the public, know the schedule and what all is involved here. If you would, please, Director.
Thank you. Commencing Monday, November 13th is Trenton, leaf and yard waste collection. Monday, November 20th is Frankfurt, Murray, and Sydney. And then November 27th is Trenton again. And the contractor assures me that any bags left out in any one of the wards the week of the 27th, they'll pick up as well.
Thank you. Now we move on to disclosure of any pecuniary interest or general nature thereof. I do have one. I will be refraining from discussing anything to do with staff report 23053 FIN. When we come to that portion of the meeting, I will turn the chair over for that discussion to Councillor O'Neill at that time. Thank you. Sorry, I'll do that again. I need a motion to approve the agenda tonight. I have Councillor Quinte and seconded by Councillor Sharp. Any comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to the approval of the minutes for the regular meeting held on October the 18th, and a resolution that the minutes of the regular council meeting held October the 18th, 2023 be approved, and further that the minutes of the closed session of council meeting held on October the 18th be approved. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Boyce and Councillor Stedall. Any discussion? Call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the minutes of the closed session Personnel Committee meeting held on October the 18th, 2023. A resolution reads that the minutes of the closed session Personnel Committee meeting held October the 18th, 2023 be approved. I need a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Armstrong, Councillor O'Neill. Any questions or comments? All in favor? Thank you. That's passed. Delegation of petitions. Our first delegation is Mr. Chris King, the Chief Executive Officer of Quinte Economic Development Commission. He's going to address Council and provide an update on activities of the Quinte Economic Development Commission. Welcome, Mr. King.
Thank you, Acting Mayor McHugh and councillors. Good chance to give you an update on Quinte Economic Development Commission, your regional economic development office that focuses on the industrial sector. Some of you are very familiar with our organization. Obviously, Councillor O'Neill's a member of the board. Mayor Harrison's on the board of directors. Councillor Kotzavos is a past board member, and I've had a lot of interactions with a lot of you over the years on economic development. But for some of you, it might be a little bit more new. So I just want to share what we're doing. And I want to recognize with me, I have board member Brad Little and board member Ted Reed. They're part of your Quinte West appointees to the Quinte Economic Development Commission, and they're great supporters of the organization as well. So we have some slides here. Let's see if I could click those. So Quinte Economic Development, we represent three communities: City of Belleville, City of Quinte West, and the municipality of Brighton. And really, what we do is two things. One is investment attraction, trying to bring in new industry, and the second is retention. How do we retain, support, grow our existing industry? And when we look at economic development, there's a lot of activities in economic development, everything from tourism to agriculture and everything in between. Our focus on economic development at Quinte Economic Development is very narrowly focused on those wealth-creating, value-added sectors of the economy, including manufacturing, food processing, logistics, and the tech sector. So we focus just on those. So there's other groups that do those other things, but we're very focused on those sectors. So think about when you make something here, you sell it outside the area, you bring net new revenue into the community. Our staff, there's four of us. So there's myself. We have an administrative assistant. And then I talked about investment attraction. Vicki Bristow-Ferguson is our business development officer, so she does a lot of the outreach, working on investment attraction. And then Mike runs our manufacturing resource center, and he's the go-to guy for existing manufacturers that are looking for support from our office. And I should also mention that we're co-located at the Quinte Business Development Center at Loyalist College, and we're partnering there with Trenval, the Business Development Bank of Canada, the National Research Council, the Small Business Center, and the corporate training arm of Loyalist College. And it's a one-stop shop for business and economic development. A client walks to the front door, they might come to see me about finding a site or other economic issues, but they need financing. The BDC and Trenval are right there to help that. They need research. We have the National Research Council with us. They need training. We have Loyalist College there. So all those resources are all in one spot. And if you haven't been there, I encourage you to come out and check it out. It's a pretty cool location. We're glad to be part of it. So we do a number of things, but I want to mention, we do have a really strong track record on investment attraction, and we have some really strong programs to attract new investment to the region. We have direct connections with our manufacturers, and we have an ongoing outreach program to stay in touch with our existing manufacturers and understand their issues and how do we support them. We've completed a detailed target market study and strategic plan. So every 5 years, we like to sit back and look at what are the sectors that we're best at this community for investment attraction. So we can't be everything to everyone, but what are those sectors are going to add the most value and have likely chance of success for attracting to our region. And so our key sectors right now are manufacturing, logistics, food, and tech. And in 2024, we're going to look at redoing that study again. So look at input from local stakeholders and businesses and outside influences to come up with the new sectors and those subsectors within that. So our strategies are really based on evidence-based decision-making, the strategies and plans with input from community partners, businesses, and other subject matter experts. So how does it work? We have a board of directors. We're a not-for-profit corporation. City of Quinte West gets to appoint 4 members to the board. So does Belleville, and Brighton, being a little smaller, gets 3 members. And as I mentioned, Mayor Harrison, Councillor O'Neill, Ted Reed, and Brad Little are your Quinte West appointees to the Quinte Economic Development Commission. And it's a per capita funding model. So in 2023, it's $4.45 per capita, and that's how we raise our core funding to make it happen. But we also like to do some outreach and look for other sources of funds to help guide us. So in 2023, if you look at our budget, the municipal portion of our budget is about 20% of our overall funding source. So Quinte West is about just over 8.5% of that. So it's about taking those municipal dollars and leveraging them. And we go after provincial money and we go after federal money to deliver more programs that support our community. So a lot of them are dollars that come through us and go back into the manufacturing sector, into the workforce, into workforce development programs, and also help with some of our initiatives. So if you think about it, at 445 and our population, it's about $500,000 in total municipal funding. In 2024, we're about 2.4, almost 2.5 million in funding that we were able to secure and deliver across our municipalities. So your municipal dollars are leveraging some pretty good provincial and federal money. And these aren't dollars that are just available to everyone. You have to apply, you have to fight, you have to work hard to get them. And we've been really fortunate to make that happen. And one example of that is our Elevate Plus program. And we have training funds for manufacturers, and we also train people with our partnership at Loyalist College to get them job ready to enter into the manufacturing sector. So I talked about our target sectors of manufacturing and food, and why focus on manufacturing? And for us, it makes a lot of sense. As I mentioned, it's a value-added, wealth-creating part of our sector, of our community. And there's still a lot of misconceptions about what manufacturing is. But a lot of manufacturers today, if you walk in a plant, it's advanced technology, it's automation, it's great wages, great career opportunities. So in the Bay of Quinte region, it's our largest employment sector. And it has of all the sectors, it has the most wages paid as well. And we have some great brand name companies in this region. But here's what the chart that I think really kind of signifies how important manufacturing is to this region. So this is Belleville, Quinte West, and Brighton. We're about a $13.5 billion economy, and that includes spending on healthcare and education and the military base and all those other sectors. Manufacturing is over half of that, $6.7 billion is manufacturing. So you think of our economic output, manufacturing is really driving a lot of the growth in the economy, and it spins off into other sectors like retail, like the service sector and construction. So that's why, as an organization, we've been focusing on the manufacturing sector. It's about 15% of the jobs, but 20% of the total wages paid, but half of our economic output. And then if you look at other sectors like transportation and warehousing that support that directly, it's even further than that. On the outreach side, we do some marketing, and our marketing is not necessarily to the general public. It's more business-to-business marketing. So we're trying to get in front of business decision influencers and business decision makers. So we do a number of things. So we do targeted marketing, some digital programmatic advertising, some traditional advertising, and also try to get in front of those groups at various trade shows and other places. And we also have some local audiences that we target with our Proudly Made in Quinte program, where we celebrate a lot of the great things made here locally as well. So that's part of our marketing strategies. And again, here's some of the trade shows that we've been to. Some of the working with Global Affairs Canada, Invest Ontario. There's a picture of Jason Myers, who's the president of NGen, the Next Generation Manufacturing Supercluster for Ontario. We've done a lot of work with our partners and stakeholders You see the Proudly Made in Quinte backdrop there and a couple of students. We had a program at Smiley's Independent for a Saturday where we had handing out the flyers of all the local products that they could find in that store that were made right here in the Bay of Quinte region. So we had a little event on that as well. And again, on investment attraction, we have that target market study. We do our strategic plan. We do direct company outreach. So we find companies we think might be a good fit. We reach out to them. We attend a lot of trade shows and events. We try to we try to be where those decision makers are, and we attend a lot of trade shows, but also working with influencers, corporate real estate officials, provincial and federal investment officials, and also site selectors. So those organizations or people that help companies decide where to locate their businesses, we make sure we're in front of them and we're top of mind with them. And then we also have web and social media. And I see maybe it didn't translate as well here, but we do have response to inquiries and service and providing services to those clients when they come to the area. We do lead generation service as well, so we try to do the research on which companies we should be targeting, and we have firms that help us out through our partnerships with Ontario East Economic Development and the Ontario Food Cluster. So we're partnering with other communities to do the research and identify those companies that are great here. And we've had some good success. Think about this year. You know, we had Quinte Custom Foods and the old Nestle's plant. That was a lead that we were able to bring forward, working with our partners, Linda Lyle and her team to help make that go. There's been some success at the former Sonical paper mill with all-season fencing. And in our neighboring community in Belleville, we were able to bring that lead of Amazon, 1.1 million square feet distribution center. That was a project that we were able to bring forward on a 100-acre site there. So yeah, some good success, and it's making a difference. In terms of retention, and again, the slides here, I don't think the print all translates great here, but we have our manufacturing resource center, so that go-to resource for manufacturers. We do industry outreach. We do training rebates. Here's a couple examples. There's Quinte Custom Foods. The mayor and I were dropping off a training rebate check, so they invested in their people. We had a fund. We were able to support them in that investment, in that workforce investment. And then same with Kruger. You can see Minister Smith there, and the mayor and the folks at Kruger were able to support some of their training initiatives. So manufacturers are trying to improve their performance and do better by investing in their people. We're able to secure funds from the province on their behalf and then flow those through our office to help them do that. We provide guidance on funding programs and help them through the funding program through applications. We do a lot of trade promotion and export guidance. And we have the Quinte Manufacturing Association, which we provide all the admin support for that, and doing plant tours, workshops and events, and other functions like the member needs help function. And everyone gets the year-end report, so the 2022 report, you can see all the activities that we did last year, and we're just in the process of creating the one for the new year. So I just want to kind of wrap up with looking ahead. So there's a number of things. We have a number of investment files that we're working on right now for the region, some specific for Quinte West, and they're looking at buildings, they're looking at industrial land, and there's some good opportunities there. There's a high level of interest as there's reshoring, repatriation in the area. We're looking at updating our strategic plan. We have some more activities and workshops focused on supporting our businesses, more marketing. Our Elevate Plus program goes to March, and we're looking to get that funded again. And then collaboration with new and existing stakeholders. But in terms of needs, one of the key needs that we have that I know Quinte West is working on is investment-ready industrial land. So there's still some inventory left in Quinte West. You have 12 acres in North Murray. You have the 50 acres that's now on stream on Carrion Place. But there's a need for more. And we have inquiries for 100 acres, 200 acres. Think about Amazon. They needed 100 acres. We couldn't accommodate them in Quinte West, but you know, maybe for future there could be opportunities there. So I love the fact that the council and the staff are working on identifying areas where they could potentially grow the industrial land. So I think that's really smart. Labor force needs and assistance with businesses and technology adoption are some of the other key things that we're working on as well. So I'm down to a few seconds here, but I want to thank the council for hearing about Quinte Economic Development. There's been some successes this year. We got more in the pipeline, and we're glad to be your regional economic development office focused on the industrial side. And our partnership with Belleville, Quinte West, and Brighton just allows us to do more, be more cost effective, but more efficient with what we do. that's a quick update on Quinte Economic Development. I'm saying I'm 30 seconds over time.
Thank you, Chris. Anybody bringing us good news, we'll give them all the time that they want.
Thank you.
I just want to thank you. The Quinte Economic Development Commission is definitely a success story. The more successful you are, the more successful we are. It's folks like yourself and Brad and Ted that help us emulate the fact that Quinte West is the best. So at this time, I'm going to open up for any questions from any council members. Councilor Armstrong?
Great presentation, Chris. Your challenge is shovel-ready land, but is the labor force a major challenge, where it's everywhere saying we're short people?
Yeah, and
Are these
labor
companies
force,
bringing in employees, or these are or both?
yeah, so labor force is an issue, and it's not a Quinte West issue or a Bay of Quinte issue.
Yeah.
It's a provincial issue. It's national. It's
Right.
across North America, and many countries around the globe are facing the same thing. So we're doing a number of things, including the Elevate Plus program, where we train people. Most of them come off social assistance. We train them to be job ready. Everyone that completes the program gets a full-time permanent job. So we're trying to get more people into the workforce. And I know we had a referral from you, Councilor Armstrong, just the other day to that program. So thank you for that.
Yep.
And then the training we do for existing companies. So how do we support companies and they want to apply new technologies or innovation to, to address some of the labor shortages? Well, those people that are still working need training, and we have that training fund to help them on that. And then investment attraction of new workers is key as well, and there's other stakeholders working on that. And your cities partner with their neighbors on doing the job fairs and other things to attract. And I know Linda Lyle was just at a recruitment fair in Ottawa, I think it was, Linda, where they're looking at bringing workers in. So there's some good things happening across a number of fronts, and but it is a key issue that I think this community is doing some good things to help address. And we just have to be marginally or better than others in terms of what we do. It's going to be a challenge no matter what, but I think we're making some good strides.
Councilor O'Neill?
Thank you, Acting Mayor. In addition to, I've noticed the commission has Loyalist College as members of the boards, and they're really working hard to help you with all the training too, right?
Yeah, Loyalist College is a key economic partner. The Elevate Plus doesn't happen. The Elevate Plus program doesn't happen without them. So they're a key partner. And like I say, their corporate training arm is just down the hall. So when companies come to see me, they're looking for a number of things, including sites and help on a number of issues, but financing, but also training. How do I recruit? How do I onboard? How do I train my team? And Loyalist College is certainly a key asset to make that happen. So yeah, we're glad to be there, and that's why we're co-located with them. Workforce development is economic development. They go hand in hand, and that's why we're part of that location at Loyalist College.
Well, again, thank you, Chris.
Can I make one more
Ted,
point?
Brad. Oh,
Sorry.
Sorry, Councilor Quinte, I didn't see it there. I
Yeah,
apologize.
that's okay. No worries. I just wanted to point on, you mentioned about the flyers that are providing information about items manufactured here in the Quinte region. So I can swing by your office and pick up a bundle of those
Please
flyers?
do, yeah. Yeah, we have some shelf hangers, some stickers, whatever you need. And if it's not the right format, we could create what you need.
Perfect. Thanks.
So again, I'm back
Thanks.
to where I was. Thank you, Chris, Ted, Brad. Appreciate all that you do. Keep up the good work. And if you ever come up with another Amazon or an EV plan or something up your sleeve, please give us a call. We'd be more than willing to maybe Councilor Elliott might donate 100 acres, put one of those buildings up. But then again, I don't think I'd want the traffic in my area. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Sorry, moving on at this time, we have Scott Simmons, Friends of Oak Lake, will address Mayor Harrison and council to speak to the creation of a septic reinspection bylaw for residents of Oak Lake. Welcome, Mr. Simmons.
Hello. Good afternoon, councillors. Acting Mayor McHugh. It's good to see some of you again. It's been since the summer. Obviously, I'm Scott Simmons. I live at 30A Neighbourly Road in Stirling, Ontario, on Oak Lake. I and 4 other residents of the lake serve as the volunteer executive committee of Friends of Oak Lake, affectionately referred to as FOOL. This is how anyone here on council or any of our 45 members or the general public can get a hold of us or learn about us through our website, and we're usually pretty good at getting back to people within 24 hours. Fool's mandate has always been that we focus on 2 words, environment first. Since 2019, when Hutchinson Environmental Services first released an Oak Lake study and its first report, it has guided our actions. In essence, it is our North Star. It is the most current and up-to-date science on the health of Oak Lake, and as such, we utilize it and advocate on behalf of the lake, as it cannot speak for itself. We advocate in three general ways. Some of you know that I've been a high school teacher in Belleville at Centennial for 25 years now, which is hard to believe, but I believe in educational materials. Most people tend to do the right thing when they know what the right thing is, so we send out 3 newsletters a year. We do work on shoreline practices or the ring of life. We've done many things on septics, do's and don'ts. We did the gypsy moth stuff when that was going on a couple years ago. Secondly, we try to build a community of residents on Oak Lake through various events. Some of you have attended our annual general meeting. We also have a Canada Boat Parade. We do an annual Earth Day trash bash pick. And of course through partnerships like the Oak Lake Water Management Plan that we partner with the City of Quinte West in, our membership with the Federation of Ontario Cottage Association, which represents 50,000 waterfront property owners in over 500 lake associations. We also work with the Ontario government in something called the Ontario Lake Partner Program, where we take samples throughout the months where we can get at the water, and many others. For those that don't know, our beginning occurred in 2018 after an agricultural manure mishap that occurred on a nearby farm in the Oak Lake watershed, after which my fellow executive members started to canvass Oak Lake itself and inform residents of the spill and some of the dangers that they could be susceptible to, and at the same time we took a survey of what their top issues were at that time. Not surprisingly, in 2018, after the mishap, agricultural runoff was their #1 issue. Septic systems was their second. The weeds, or the propensity for weed growth in Oak Lake, was third. Water quality was fourth, and then not on this chart, water levels was number 5. Resulting from that survey, after presenting to Quinte West Council and Mayor Harrison, they used the Hutchinson Environmental Services first recommendation was, of course, to reroute the existing historical farm tile that had been feeding manure into Oak Lake whenever there was a runoff, and that investment in infrastructure, I believe, cost the City of Quinte West taxpayers about $250,000, and it took the existing tile drain away from Oak Lake and to the northeast, on the northeast side of Highway 14, into a natural wetland, and by doing so, it reduced 12% of the annual phosphorus that goes into Oak Lake on a yearly basis, which is a huge portion. And so again, we thank you for those actions way back in 2019. As many of you are probably aware, Oak Lake is a pretty unique geological structure. It's a kettle lake, and what that really means in a sort of a dumbed-down sense is that if you picture a volcano, that stereotypical volcano that you might have drawn when you were a child, instead of lava or magma filling the top rim, we have fresh water. It's identical, a little bit smaller than Lake on the Mountie in the county, if you've heard of that place. This person here, Brent Parsons, and I'm not going to use the laser pointer. I get students doing that to me in class, and I don't like it, so I'm not going to do it here. But Brent Parsons released the report along with his other PhD scientists, and because of the nature of Oak Lake and how there is no water flow in or out, there's no creeks, there's no rivers, there's no streams. Everything comes from underground aquifers, or perhaps spring-fed lake is what most people know it as. The pollutants that get into the lake have a devastating effect on it, and of course it comes through surface runoff. Brent Parsons, pardon me, along with other scientists, most things that I've read, and as many of you know, I'm a geography specialist from the University of Toronto, so I spent my whole life learning about the environment and acting on the environment. They all agree that phosphorus is the #1 limiting pollutant to any type of aquatic ecosystem. So limiting phosphorus is really important, particularly with Oak Lake having no running water in or out. What goes in stays in. This slide shows HESL's most recent phosphorus budget. What it basically says is the amount of phosphorus that goes into the lake on an annual basis and where it comes from. As you can see, if you can see the slides in front of you, the majority is from the sediment bottom itself. That's called internal loading. To get rid of that sediment that's built up over the years, it's an extremely slow and an extremely expensive process if you were able to even afford it. 27% of the phosphorus that comes into Oak Lake every year, and I quote from the 2023 HESO report, directly attributable to faulty septic systems. The third largest source, of course, is 12%. That was the agricultural runoff, but again, Quinte West fixed that problem back in 2019. And the most recent report that just came out, and I'm sure you saw in March, said that overall phosphorus levels had reduced by about 1% this year, although they're not sure if it will continue into the future. This next slide demonstrates some of the truths and most common understanding of bylaws that mandate septic reinspection. Septic reinspection programs improve the health of both the environment and people's health. Septic reinspection programs are mostly non-invasive, and they only find failures and deficiencies that are actually already there. Municipalities that do not have a mandatory septic inspection program do not have to reinvent the wheel. And a bylaw itself empowers municipalities to do so if they so choose. And then, of course, two really contradictory but extremely important terms: voluntary versus mandatory. This slide shows 4 of 100 municipal bylaws operating in the province of Ontario: Tiny Township, the Municipality of Callander, Thousand Islands and Leeds, and the Township of Rideau Lakes. As you can see, there's a lot of commonalities. Some of those commonalities are who serves as principal authority. That would be the person or the organization that governs the bylaw inspection system, and that's generally a conservation authority or a local district health unit. It also talks about how these systems or these bylaws are paid for. Most of the systems are paid for through direct taxation of the people that live on a lake such as Oak Lake, or it's done through when it's your turn, a user pay system. And you can see some of the logistics. Most are on a 5-year cycle. So not every property, say for instance on Oak Lake, is done every year. You do 20 every year or so, and you get through the 100 properties or so on Oak Lake within 5 years. It should be restated here, though, that a bylaw both empowers septic contractors and protects municipalities from liability. This slide here is a slide that sort of highlights some of the reasons municipalities hesitate when it comes to septic inspection bylaws. The first one, starting from scratch. You don't need to start from scratch. There's 100 available. They're like blueprints that can be followed to a T. Second is finding qualified help. Friends of Oak Lake has already contacted several local septic contractors. They believe it would be no issue whatsoever to handle a bylaw that mandates the 100 and so properties on Oak Lake through a 5-year program. Funding the reinspection system has already been mentioned. It's either through direct taxation or it's through a user pay system. The big one, of course, is ratepayer resistance. And, of course, surmising here that anyone who does not really want a mandatory septic system means that their system is probably antiquated and or deficient. And I understand how expensive it is to replace these things. Obviously, I've looked into this over the last couple of years since this became an issue. Noteworthy here is that some municipalities, like the Municipality of Callander, actually created a fund through the taxation of their residents, whereby the municipality itself could offer a low-interest loan so that residents could actually do the right thing or could afford to do the right thing to get their systems up to par. Callander mentioned that it was a revenue stream for the city, not a huge revenue stream, but a little revenue stream. You know, you always lend out money at a cheaper rate than you get back, so that was something that I thought was pretty unique. In 2019 and 2023, Hutchison Environmental Services stated their #1 recommendation for both the health of Oak Lake and personal health of the residents was a mandated septic inspection bylaw. Whether you're citing the Clean Water Act of 2006 or even the Lower Trent Source Protection Plan, or any other innumerable pieces of legislation, faulty septic systems pose, again, a direct threat to drinking water. And for us on Oak Lake is our common well. This is where all residents on Oak Lake draw their water from. Historically, Oak Lake has been heavily studied, going back 50 years. I've got binders and binders. These are just 4 of the examples that Quinte West and other organizations like Lower Trent Conservation Authority has spent time, money, and human effort on, and all of them, in some form or another, either suggest or recommend a mandatory septic bylaw for Oak Lake. Here's a 2002 Quinte West bylaw draft, created by Mayor Campney back then and council. Clearly these elected officials were attempting to do the right thing. They had good intentions, and they were listening to the scientific recommendations of said reports. Unfortunately, however, the bylaw never got past the draft phase, never received, I guess, what we would call royal assent, if you will. Almost done. This is our most recent survey of Oak Lake residents. As you can see, we had 25 respondents. Of the 25 that responded, 20 responded with a no, and 20 responded yes, 5 responded no. So that if you take that to a percentage, it's 80% yes, 20% no. In my profession as an educator, that's an A. Taking this issue forward, residents of Oak Lake, particularly those of the Fool Executive, understand that the property owners on Pines Lane have some type of septic system that is supposed to be coming up and or to be completed, and we were hoping that if that still is what is supposed to happen, that we could somehow incorporate the entire lake in itself and make one mandated bylaw in order to improve the 27% of the phosphorus that goes into Oak Lake on an annual basis. Any time that you can mesh environmental protection and human health, I think you should. In this case, the science supports it. There's quite a significant resident approval rating, and Quinte West has already spent close to, if not $500,000 on Oak Lake over the last 4 or 5 years. Moreover, it's the right thing to do. Not doing so minimizes the work of past council and mayor. It minimizes the innumerable amount of money that has been spent on studies over the past 50 years. The current study from Hutchison Environmental Services, resident civic responsibility and action like Friends of Oak Lake and others that have preceded me. And from our beginnings in 2018 after the agricultural manure mishap, we feel it's important that for the health of Oak Lake itself and the residents itself that a bylaw is mandated. We do not feel that because someone cannot or will not afford to replace their system, they have a right to dump their wastewater into the lake. If we don't do anything in 2023, another 20 years is going to go by, and we'll have spent hundreds of thousands of more dollars on more reports and more studies. And if nothing changes, then that will be a real shame.
Mr. Simmons,
to be honest,
Mr. Simmons,
yes.
If I could please, could we get
Yep,
you to wrap up?
yep.
It's important you've wrapped up. We're 4
I've
minutes
got,
over time.
I'm on my last little point here, sir. Thank you. In reality, if you go back to that pie graph, 27% comes from faulty septic systems. It is the only remaining anthropogenic action that can be taken that would significantly improve the health of Oak Lake and its residents. Thank you very much for your time and everything you've done.
Thank you very much, sir. We do appreciate that. It's very, very informative, very well presented. I'll open up to any questions or comments from staff members. I'll start from my right here, Councillor Quinte.
Hey, thanks very much for coming out, Scott, and thanks for your constant invitations to council to come to your annual general meeting. You've always picked a beautiful day to have the annual general meeting. And I realize that this past year the city did not proceed with the Hutchinson's report, so I'm hoping that perhaps maybe in 2024 we will be able to have Hutchinson come back and continue their research to provide information. And one of the things I guess I would also like to ask if Director Chris Angelo and Director Brian Jardine would also like to, sort of follow up with the results of the Hutchinson report to let our citizens know that the information you are providing is accurate, which I'm sure it is, because I've gone through some of those reports as well, and a lot of it is like super scientific, like way over my head. But Oak Lake is getting a little bit better, because I can remember attending the 2022 annual meeting for Friends of Oak Lake, and when I arrived at the meeting, as soon as I got out of the truck, I could smell the air, and you could tell right away the lake was feeling a little healthier. And it's not just the city redirecting the flow from the east into the lake. It's also many of the citizens around the lake contributing as well, following the advice of the Conservation Authority, Lower Trent River Conservation Authority, and their suggestion to let some of the growth at the shoreline continue, because that also is a big helper in not only helping the lake, but also the wildlife that continues to want to survive there. And if the wildlife is going to do well, then the human population is also going to benefit as well. So you are correct in the fact that because the water goes into the lake, and the only way it really leaves is through evaporation, and so we really do need to take care as to what we put into the lake. So I thank you very much for coming today. But
Thank you.
is this a good time for Directors Angelo and Jardine to make comment, or want to wait till the councils are finished?
Director Angelo, would you like to make a comment at this time?
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, I would suggest that it might be prudent for other council members, if they have some questions or concerns they want to raise in regards to the delegation, they do that. We're really waiting for council direction, if you will, on what council wants us to do in terms of staff reports, et cetera, going forward. And I think my colleague, Mr. Jardine, would probably agree, if council so wishes, for an update report and the direction in regards to a bylaw, we'll rate that direction from council, and we'll take your lead based on that.
Thank you. Councillor Stedall.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I would recommend that we do request staff for a staff report on this, and to bring forward all of the pros and cons. I've been involved myself with septic inspection programs through the municipalities that I've worked with, and I found that they've been very successful, although there is sometimes a lot of pushback from the residents. There's the cost to the programs, but the benefits to the Oak Lake would be probably far outweigh some of those negative items. But it's additional staffing is required. You brought that up in your PowerPoint, as to get qualified people. And I know we have some of our staff, especially in the building department right now, we've got quite a overflow of responsibilities that they have, and to add this on to them might be something, they may have to have extra staff coming in. And there's the additional cost, and whether or not it's funded through a fee or through the tax program. So there's a number of different considerations, and I think I would agree with Mr. Angelo, is that we would request a staff report come back on this.
Thank you.
Okay, before we venture there, I know that Councillor Sharp is anxious to speak.
No, thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I was really just want to support what Councillor Stedall has indicated. I think this really needs a staff report that we can review the information that you've provided, Scott, and your association members. I know that you work very hard also monitoring the water and working alongside us, and I really do think it needs comment with, pros and cons or impacts, whatever you want to say. And I would like certainly the staff that would be involved to bring it forward, and also the resources it might require. So again, appreciate it. We will continue to work together, but it will take time. And right now, I know the staff are incredibly busy, but we are entering the budget. So if there are budget impacts, and we'll look at that too. So that was really it, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add to what other members have said, and to thank you for the work, and of course, always the great barbecue.
Councilor Card?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I just had a brief question. I noticed there were 25 votes in the poll that you did there of property owners. How many total property owners do you think that there are around the lake that would have affected septic beds?
We've been around and counted both 911 numbers from the land, and we've been around in a boat, and we've counted between 118 and 120 individual properties. And about 55% of the people that live on Oak Lake are cottagers. So there's only about 45% of the people that live year-round, if that answers your question.
It does. Thank you.
I'm going to turn back to Councilor Stedall.
Yes, can I put that motion on the floor to request a staff report on the implementation?
We have a mover and a seconder for staff report to come back. When's convenient for them to bring it back, because we know they're busy right now, so it's not going to happen in the next week or two. So all in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Sorry, now we move on to the public input portion of the council meeting. If anybody has anything to say, please come up to the podium. Please state your name and address. Is there anybody right now who wants to come up for public input? Going once? Going twice? Oh, thank you.
Hi, I'm Natalie O'Toole. I'm the Training and Public Education Coordinator at Three Oaks Foundation. I'm a resident of actually the Belleville area. I spent a lot of time in Quinte West though. I feel very thankful to be a part of a municipality that is considering the resolution that was proposed by the town of Aurora to formally declare intimate partner violence and gender-based violence as an epidemic. I want to share that there is now 68 municipalities that have declared intimate partner violence as an epidemic. And as my colleague Amy Dufresne, who's here today, shared at the previous council meeting, in 2015 there were 3 women, Carol Culleton, Anastasia Kuzik, Natalie Womerdam, who were murdered in Renfrew County, Ontario by their former intimate partners. Through the inquest into these femicides, 85 recommendations were brought forth. These recommendations provide a guideline to the prevention of intimate partner violence turning lethal or turning into femicide. I personally am concerned about the high rates of femicide and other forms of intimate partner violence and gender-based violence that we continue to see. Last year in Ontario, on average, every 7 days a woman was killed by a man known to them. The femicides we see in Ontario are preventable tragedies which continue to devastate the families and communities. I want to share that although COVID-19 has increased the incidences of intimate partner violence and gender-based violence, COVID-19 did not create the violence that is happening in Hastings and Prince Edward counties. Violence against women and intimate partner violence was happening before COVID-19 and is still happening now. It is necessary to note that the increase in numbers of women who access violence against women organizations, such as Three Oaks Foundation, has not decreased and is not predicted to. The increasing numbers that we are seeing has not kept its pace with the growing demand for services and support that the victims and survivors of our community need. At Three Oaks Foundation, from just April to July of this year, 2023, we have received 482 crisis calls, and in this time we have provided shelter to 36 women and 21 children who have experienced or are experiencing intimate partner violence. By joining the 68 municipalities and declaring intimate partner violence and gender-based violence as an epidemic, we will be able to meaningfully address the epidemic. Declaring intimate partner and gender-based violence as an epidemic allows us as a community to drive change towards eradicating intimate partner violence in Ontario. It will foster a sense of solidarity for the victims and survivors in our community, and by declaring such as an epidemic, it in hopes will push the provincial government to do the same. I also want to inform you all that today is the first day of Women Abuse Prevention Month, and this month's Three Oaks, along with other violence against women organizations, will continue to spread awareness that violence against women is the greatest inequality rights issue for women and girls. This month's Three Oaks will also be taking part in the Wrapped in Courage campaign, which is why I'm wearing a purple scarf today, and the purple scarf is a symbol of the courage it takes a woman to leave her abuser. The Wrapped in Courage campaign began in 2013 and aims to raise awareness on gender-based violence and work towards preventing femicide in Ontario. So this November, we are calling upon all community members and leaders to take action against gender-based violence, and the theme of this year's Wrapped in Courage campaign is Purple is for Everyone, which helps us promote the idea that it truly does take a community to end gender-based violence. The scarves signal a commitment to ending gender-based violence and sends a message to survivors that they are not alone. Three Oaks is very proud to be an agency partner to the Wrapped in Courage campaign, and we look forward to seeing our community in their purple scarves. I want to share that for those experiencing or who have experienced intimate partner violence who might be listening or are here today, that our crisis line is available 24/7 at 613-966-3074 or toll-free at 1-800-267-0533. And with today being the first day of Women Abuse Prevention Month, I believe it would be even more significant for Council to declare intimate partner violence as an epidemic. Therefore, I wish to request that the Council makes the declaration of intimate partner violence as an epidemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Toole. Thank you. Anybody else for public input? Again, going once, going twice. Offer's closed. Thank you. We'll now move on to committee reports. First on the agenda is corporate services. You've all been furnished with a staff report from Josh McKechnie, Manager of Legislative Services, with regard to the 2022 election feedback summary and next steps. The resolution before you is a staff report QW 2023-00236 by Josh McKechnie regarding 2022 election feedback summary and next steps be received. I need a mover for that motion, if I could, please. Councillor Boyce and Councillor Ellier. Any discussion on that? Any questions? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just really wanted to acknowledge the work of staff with respect to this report and the research that was done. It's very clear, and I think the recommendations will be certainly considered going forward with future elections, but that the paper ballot was very important, and I think that was acknowledged in this process. So I just want to highlight that, as well as the other communication recommendations that are included in this going forward. So it's an excellent report. Thank you.
Any other comments? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next, we move on to the staff report that you have before you again from Josh McKechnie and Director Brian Jardine, Director of Planning and Development, regarding the request to amend city's sign bylaw, bylaw number 14-118. The resolution before you is the staff report Quinte West 2023-00238 from Josh McKechnie, City Clerk of Legislative Services, and Brian Jardine, Director of Planning and Development Service, regarding request to amend the city's sign bylaw be received, and further that staff report the same report be forwarded to the Equity Diversion and Inclusion Advisory Committee for consideration. I need a mover for that, if I could, please. Councillor Quinte, a seconder. Councillor Card, any comments? All in, call for the vote. All in favor? Thank you. Financial Services, we have a staff report 23-052 FIN from Caleb Denoud, Director of Finance, regarding PI investment results third quarter 2023. The resolution before you is that Council received the information. I need a mover and a seconder for that, if I could, please. Councillor Stedall moves it. A seconder, please. Councillor Reid seconds it. Any comments? Councillor Stedall.
Just a quick comment, and I defer this to the Director of Finance, but the results have not been very favorable year over year, but this is just the beginning. It's more of a long-term investment, and that, I guess, is the point to make, is that it doesn't look great, but their economy is changing, I believe. So.
Yeah, through you, Chair, that's correct. The economy hasn't been great. The markets haven't been great for the last 2 years, kind of up and down, but relatively flat since we started our investment. But like Councillor Stedall said, this is a long-term investment plan, so we kind of sit and wait on these funds to see how they respond over the long term.
Councillor Card.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Deputy Mayor. I was going to echo Councillor Stedall's points. It's kind of a unique time in history the last 2 years where both the equity markets and the bond markets have actually both went down. It's kind of a unique point in history, but I think if we take the longer term horizon, this is very prudently managed in the kind of lower risk fund, and I think we stay the course, and thanks.
Any other comments? It's been duly moved and seconded. All in favor? Motion is carried. The next staff report is one which I've declared a conflict of, so at this time, for this decision only, I will turn the gavel over to Councillor O'Neill to chair this part of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff Report 23053 FIN from Director of Finance Caleb Denowden. The subject's the Quinte Museum of Natural History financial contribution. The recommendation is to approve an immediate grant of $100,000 from the Quinte Museum of Natural History to maintain operations in 2024, and Council invites the Quinte Museum of Natural History to the December 6th, 7th special budget meeting to present a business plan and any financial requests as relates to the previous council commitment of $2 million in kind and $2 million in cash in principle. Did anyone like to make that motion? Councillor
So
Card.
moved, Mr. Chair.
And seconded by Councillor Freeman. Discussion open on this, please.
Mr. Chair, sorry.
Did you have your hand up, Councillor Kotsavos?
I was going to second the motion, Councillor O'Neill,
Okay, thank you.
but it already happened. I do have a comment. I thought Councillor Sharp was first, so.
Go ahead, Councillor Kotsavos, and Councillor Sharp can be next.
Okay, thank you. I urge people to support this museum. It's taken a few years, hard years because of COVID to get going. I spoke to the director and she was very optimistic that things were going to turn around. I would just again suggest if anyone has any reservations that maybe she could come sooner than the December 6th, 7th special budget, sometime in November, and present to council so she can answer their questions before we deliberate for budget.
Thank you. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. With this motion, with the $100,000, that was put in a specific reserve for this purpose. So I will be supporting that particular, this motion. And then the additional fund request would come forward when there's more information for reconsideration for future. So I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Boyce.
I too will be supporting this museum. For anyone that hasn't had the opportunity to attend, it's an absolute gem in this community, and I would hate to see something happen that we lose a museum of this magnitude. I tell a lot of people from out of town, when you're in town, you know, this is one of the things that you've got to attend and see. So I'm certainly going to support it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Siddell.
I appreciate the fact that there is a reserve, and so I would support it because it's been specified out of that reserve. But I would like to see the staff come back and do a presentation on what the long term is, because this depletes the reserve, and if there's any other hiccups that may happen in 2024, there won't be much funds left. So it would be nice to see what the longer term is the plan, and what the optimistic for future will be for the museum.
Thank you. Councillor Reid.
Thank you very much. I will be supporting this too. I know it has been hard times with COVID, and the Quinte Museum of Natural History has been thinking outside of the box and trying to do everything that they possibly can to engage and to invite people to come in and see this absolute gem of a museum that we have in Quinte West. So I will be supporting it. They're working hard. It's not that they're just sitting and waiting and folding their hands for money to fall in their laps. They are working hard to try to make a go of it. So I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr.
Anyone
Chair?
else? Yes, Councillor Freeman.
Thank you very much. I just want to slide this in because I have the opportunity to say that our Executive Director, Deanna Way, who's probably in the audience right now, received from the Ontario Museum Association Promising Leadership Award, which we are just so proud of her and what she's accomplished at our museum and what we look forward to in the future. So thank you very much, Deanna, if you're there.
Thank you. Councillor Coetzee.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair O'Neill. So if I understand correctly, the request is for the $100,000 to come right now. They're not waiting till the December meeting. Is that, I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that.
That's my understanding, yes.
All right, and because the city already has this money budgeted, set aside, it's like Councillor Stedall mentioned, that if we grant them the $100,000 as they've requested, that budgeted amount is now seriously depleted. If there are any other hiccups, which we don't know of, hopefully there aren't any, because there have been, since this museum first came forward with their great idea, this has had some adjustments made to it because of all sorts of conditions, including COVID and availability of land and the cost of construction has like quadrupled. So this plan that is currently in place is a great idea to get things up and running and see how this is all working, and I hear nothing but positive comments about it. So I am going to support it, and then we'll see what's going to happen going forward. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? I have some comments. I really want this organization to be successful, but I find this last-minute request hard to support. The money is there, but we should have had financial projections showing the updated revenue and expenditures to justify this project is still viable. And without that, I don't think we should support this. Thank you. Okay, so we'll take a vote, and I'd like a recorded vote, please.
Councillor Ellier,
Yes.
Councillor Armstrong,
No.
Councillor Boyce,
Yes.
Yes.
Councillor Freeman,
Yes.
Councillor Kotsavos,
Yes.
Councillor Quinte,
Yes.
Councillor O'Neill,
No.
Councillor Reed,
Yes.
Yes.
sorry, Councillor Sharp,
Yes.
Councillor Stedall.
Yes.
You have 9 yeas. Motion passes.
Thank you. Can we call Councillor McHugh?
Thank you, Councilor Neal. We'll move on now before I have staff report from Caleb Denowden with regard to customer services counter accessibility review. The resolution before you is that council approve a 6-month trial of the changes to the customer service counter at City Hall as proposed. I need a mover and a seconder for that motion.
I'll move it.
Please, Councilor Quincy moves it. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Ellier. Discussion? Councilor Reed? Oh, sorry. Councilor Sharp. Sorry, Councilor Sharp.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to acknowledge the report, and I will be supporting the recommendation. I wanted to note that this recommendation went to the Accessibility Committee, and they provided, I think, some very helpful comments, and I think Director Denowden would agree that they offered some thoughts, and you will see in the report the idea of how we can work with the, I guess, a more accessible, friendly communication system for the lower area, and it's a trial basis, and to try this and see if it works and get the feedback. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and Councillor Freeman is now on the Accessibility Committee, and I think it was, they very much appreciated the opportunity to have comment. Thank you.
Any other comments? Oh, Councilor Card?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll also be supporting the motion. I watched the Accessibility Committee meeting, and a lot of good points were made. And I think it was fair that though the previous kind of staff report was compliant with the AODA, it made sense that if we could exceed that minimum threshold and add in, and I think that the hands-free screen not only boosts security and allows that hands-free option and we're kind of surpassing even the AODA standard. So I think it's a win-win in my mind, and I think staff did a great job kind of finding a middle ground that would work for everyone, I think. So thanks.
Councillor Stedall?
We can't hear you.
My question, I guess, is in regards to the 6-month trial period. If you do 6 months trial, are we going to have the downstairs area? Like, is it going to be reversible if we get pushback from the public and they say that they're not interested, that they would like to see the downstairs back to the CSR customers? Are we going to fill in the gaps with office space while this 6-month trial happens? And I have a follow-up.
Through you, Chair, no, there's no plan to do renovation during the trial.
Okay, and then I guess my other concern is with technology. We've just received a report from our election which says that we have a number of different members of the public that are not interested in the technology. They'd like us to go back to a paper-based system for the ballots. So I'm going to express my concern. I won't be voting in favor of it because I have to speak on behalf of those people that are not interested in using technology in order to get to be able to speak to somebody upstairs. So anyway, I appreciate that it was done through accessibility, and I believe that was the correct way to go. And it's not just about people that have disabilities. I think it's more than the broader public that may be affected by this move.
Councillor Quinte, the floor is yours.
Thanks very much, Mr. McHugh. So this report came forward just for the citizens. For the last 3 years, we've been planning and reorganizing the workspaces here at City Hall, and as a result of the studies and research provided by staff, this downstairs service area was recognized that it's not really used fully to the full extent, and to keep our city operating at prime efficiency, according to our staff, that they want the downstairs location moved to upstairs, where most of the staff are, and during break times or periods when there are staffing issues, it's much easier for the staff to be in one place rather than to be in two places. And one of the things that our citizens mentioned 6 or 8 months ago was they wanted us to be efficient and think outside the box. And citizens who do attend City Hall, there is access to the elevator, which happens in many other facilities all around not only the city of Quinte West, but also other cities. So if you have to go to a hospital, for example, and you need to go to the 3rd floor, then you go to the elevator. I'm just using hospitals as an example because most everybody has to go to a hospital for some sort of test or an appointment of some sort, and that's how they get around when they get to the hospital, and they don't complain that they need the equipment brought down to them while they're in the lobby. So I want to try this out, see how it works, get some statistics on how it works. If people don't want to use technology, my understanding is that there's going to be a communication system here. So, I mean, if a telephone is not considered technology, then I don't know what wouldn't be. So I want to see it tried out, so I am going to support it and see what the results are. And at first I was thinking, like, why does this need to go to the Accessibility Committee? But I'm glad that it did, because we got their support as well to do it this way. So thank you very much.
Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not going to support this. I'm glad it went to the accessibility, but my argument all along was whether or not losing that area would negatively affect customer service. And I think our primary concern is about customer service. I think it's going to be affected negatively, and so I'm not going to support this motion. And I'll ask for a recorded vote at the end.
Any further comments? Councillor Stedall?
I guess one last question. What happens at the end of the 6 months? Is this going to come back to council before it becomes permanent?
Through you, Chair, yeah, that's the intent, yep.
Mr.
Councillor
Chair?
Freeman, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure that the public understands that what this 6 months is about is, do we need the downstairs customer service office open, or do we close it at the end of the 6 months when it comes back to council? So anyone that has an opinion on that doesn't have to be the one that walked in the door between now and then, but anybody that feels strongly about keeping it or thinks there's no problem with losing it. And somebody, I believe, just brought up hospitals. I, for one, can tell you that because I've had a recent illness, I walked into the hospital, walked into an elevator, and I could not reach any buttons. That was it. It was done. I had to walk back out and wait for the person that had dropped me off to come in. So please don't use that for an example of perfection. There's a million doors that are very difficult to open. We at City Hall now have some handicap door openers that are just, that are godsend. But taking away something that we've had for, 30 years of Quinte West, or that building, we thank God we did go to the accessibility committee, and I thank Director Denouden for attending that, to realize that there was more to it than put an elevator or a phone on a wall, and we can buzz down or buzz up and somebody will come down and get you if you need to, or deal with you downstairs if that's necessary. So please know that we are asking the public to take a lesser amount of service with this. So if you feel strongly about it, let us know. And if you don't, then 6 months from now, that will be gone. Thank you. And I'd like to know too, if I may continue a little further on, what is the cost? I've never heard the specific cost for wiping out that whole area and for rebuilding it as an office or whatever it is. So I wonder if we can't hear that eventually.
Through you, Chair, yeah, so we didn't do cost. We know that it would cost money to both make it accessible and or to renovate it into any type of meeting space. And so there will be discussions for 2024 budget, assuming the trial ends in 6 months, of ideas and what that might cost to transition that. So that'll be coming forward in December.
Thank you.
Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Quinte.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my understanding that this is only a trial basis, and the original report said there would be a savings in costs if it was put to the top. So it's only a trial basis, and we can determine if there is a negative effect to customer service or not, and let's at least give it a chance.
I'm pretty much going to echo what Councillor O'Neill said. There's a cost to operating it that would be continuous going into the future versus reinvesting money to reconfigure it or put it to another purpose, which would be like a one-time cost. But having it serviced is a continuous cost, and our citizens were pretty clear in the springtime that they're looking for efficiencies, and this would be, and our city staff in their reorganization looking for efficiencies, and this is what they're coming back to tell us, and I'm glad that they have, and I think it's a great idea, so I'm going to support it.
Any further comments? Duly moved and seconded. Call for the vote. All in favor? Sorry, recorded vote, please, if you would.
Councillor Ellier.
Yes.
Councillor Armstrong.
Yes.
Councillor Boyce.
No.
Councillor Card.
Yes.
Councillor Freeman.
No.
Councillor Kotsavos.
Yes.
Councillor Quinte.
Yes.
Councillor O'Neill.
Yes.
Councillor Reed.
No.
Councillor Sharp.
Yes.
Councillor Stedall.
No.
And Deputy Mayor McHugh.
Yes.
We have 8 yeas and 4 noes.
We'll now move on to Staff Report 23055 FIN from Melanie Master, the Manager of Purchasing and Risk Management, regarding the 2023 third quarter non-standard purchasing and purchasing update, and the resolution before you is the council received this report for information. I need a mover and a seconder, please, for this report, if I could. Looking for a mover and a seconder, Councilor Neal and Councilor Card. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. You also have before you staff report from Matt Hodge, Manager of Finance, regarding 2023 third quarter capital update. The resolution before you is that council received the 2023 third quarter capital update report as information. I need a mover and a seconder for this report, please. Councilor Armstrong and Councilor Quinte. Any further questions or discussions on this? Councilor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the Director of Public Works, I have a question about two of the capital projects, which we've previously discussed. The first is the Hill Road Bridge replacement, where it said a tender's been posted, but it's my understanding the tender was received, but it wasn't awarded, and the costs, I believe, are going to be substantially lower. If you could comment on that, please.
Yes, thank you through the chair. We did put out a tender, I believe it was last year, and the tender came in well over $1 million to complete that project. Since that time, staff have went back to the drawing board with our consultant, and we're looking at putting in a modular type of structure, ultimately referred to as a Bailey Bridge structure, at a significant cost savings, and we're hopeful to start this project early spring.
Thank you. And the next project is on the Wooler Road Bridge rehab. It's budgeted for $5.4 million, but the notes say it's supposed to be closer to $15 million. And I wanted to make sure first that they're talking about a 4-lane bridge, but it's my understanding it'll be 2 lanes with footings to maybe make it 4 lanes. And I also wanted to make sure we're not going to widen County Road 40 to 4 lanes. And that's not in the capital plan any time in the future, 10 years or whatever.
Through the chair, that is correct. Although the widening of County Road 40 to 4 lanes is included in our current development charges study, because we envisioned in the next several years that road will need to be widened to accommodate growth in that west end of our urban area.
So the $5.4 million budgeted opposed to $15 million projected actual costs, like, when's that going to be added?
The additional funds are being proposed to be added in 2024 capital plan. The total cost of that bridge replacement is roughly 13 to 15 million, of which all we're doing is building foundations wider to accommodate the future widening. The future widening and timing of that have yet to be determined.
Thank you.
Oh, Councilor Boyce.
Thank you. Through you to Director Angelo. Two of the items were for 100% federal funding. One of them was the bus tech modernization, and one was the onboard bike racks for the buses. And both of them have stated that they've been postponed. Does that mean we lose that federal funding that was allocated?
Through the chair, I would have to ask the executive director of Quinte Access that question. She is, I guess, responsible for that project, and I don't know the status of that at this point in time.
Perhaps if you could, because we weren't, it was federal funding, which I know in both cases through my previous municipality, they were both great projects. A lot of people used the bike racks on the transportation. And the other item was the bike trail, the bike racks along the trails, and that was postponed as well, and that was coming from other reserves. And was there a reason why we canceled that or postponed it?
Through the chair, can you tell me specifically what project number that is?
4142.
To be honest, I haven't had a chance to look at that, but I can certainly look at that and let the member know.
Oh, okay, yeah, perhaps we can get information back at the next meeting for those 3 items.
We can do that, yes.
I just hate losing federal 100% funding.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Move on now to staff report 23057 from Matt Hodge, Manager of Finance, regarding third quarter city operating update. The resolution is that Council received a 2023 third quarter city operation update report as information. I need a mover and a seconder for that, if I could, please. Councilor Armstrong, I need a seconder, please. Councilor Stedall, any comments or questions? Councilor Stedall?
Just a quick question. I'm assuming that it would be in here. The money that's going to be received from the federal government for the PIL, will that flow through operations and then go to reserve?
Yeah, so there's an embargo. We're just waiting to hear from the government on that announcement, and then we'll bring that back to council to make a decision on where to put those funds.
Okay, and I guess I should correct myself. It's not federal money, it's provincial money that's covering what the federal government didn't pay.
Correct.
So I better make sure I get that correct. Thanks.
Any other questions? It's been duly moved and seconded. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. We now move on to staff report 23058 from Matt Hodge, Manager of Finance, regarding the 2023 third quarter water and sewer operating update. The resolution before you is that Council received the 2023 third quarter water and sewer operation update as information, and I need a mover and a seconder for that, if I could, please. I have Councilor Reid moves it. I need a seconder, please. Councilor Armstrong seconds it. Any questions or comments? I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And moving on, we now have a staff report from LD Master Manager of Purchasing and Risk Management regarding the 2023 third quarter insurance and risk update. The resolution before you is that Council receive this for information. I need a mover and a seconder for this, please. Councilor Sharp moves it. Councilor Quinte seconds it. Looking right at him. Thank you.
I wanted somebody else to second it. I don't want to talk about insurance all day long and then come here and talk about it.
Any further discussion on this? Any question or discussion? Seeing none, a call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. We now move on to the Planning and Development Services portion of the meeting here tonight. We have before you a staff report from Brian Jardine, Director of Planning and Development Services, and Kerry West, Supervisor of Bylaw Enforcement, regarding the City of Quinte West parking system implementation. Resolution is that Council direct staff to, and we have an A or a B as I see it here right now. So I would like a resolution, I guess, from somebody. Councilor Armstrong?
I'd like to put a motion on the floor for option B, I guess it is.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councilor Sharp?
And could I add to the motion?
Please. Any discussion, please?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And if the mover would agree to this, option one, with the exception of the Main Street restricted to 2 hours of parking, and this is a result of some feedback from some downtown merchants, if that would be considered. So free parking for residents and visitors, continued parking enforcement of illegal dangerous parking, prepared tender, all the other elements, but that Main Street having the 2-hour limitation. And I maybe ask that Councillor Card weigh in on this with some more information.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Yes, I did circulate the report at to the DBIA board and some other business owners downtown just for their input, and they were generally not strongly opinionated on whether the backlots should be free or there should be a charge. I understood the reasoning behind that. The preference would be, I guess, for free everywhere, but either choice that was made, it was made clear to me that the 2-hour limits were an important part of, and their enforcement were an important part of having a healthy kind of parking environment downtown. There are some businesses or employees, different customers that they feel like if it is free downtown, that without the limits, that there could be some people kind of hogging spots for long periods of time, and that can be especially damaging if it's a business owner or an employee who's there all day and they're taking some of those prime spots. So that was the most important feedback, and if it was going to be free in the back lots also, that would alleviate some of the other issues that were brought up, that employees, having to pay in the lots obviously gets very expensive. And there's tons of volunteers at the Mission Thrift that their parking bills as volunteers would be very substantial if there was a charge in the lots also. So I think free everywhere has proven effective over the last couple of years, and as long as the 2-hour limit's on street, I think that that would make the most sense. Thank you.
Can I just have a point of clarification? I just want to make sure, Councillor Sharp, you seconded the motion for the B, or the second part, with that change? That's what I was going to call it, if the mover agrees to that. So that's the motion right now that's on the floor, B, with that 2-hour limitation change. Any, Councillor O'Neill?
Question, on the parking lots, is there going to be a 2-hour limit on the parking lots, too? So if downtown employees at the stores, are they going to have to move their cars every 2 hours? Or how are you going to look after the 2-hour limit in the parking lots?
Mr. Jardine.
Yeah, Director Jardine, please, if you would.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Acting Mayor, to you and Council. Yeah, the on-street parking has always been the kind of the hardest portion of this, and the way that we've always viewed the on-street parking is that that's mainly intended for that quick turnover, so that people can stop, drop off, do their business quickly and go. So with the expectation or the understanding of the revised motion, there would be no 2-hour limit within the parking lots. The time limit would only be with the on-street parking to allow for that flow. People can park in the parking lots all day without having to move their vehicles.
24 hours?
No, sorry, during operational hours.
I wanted that clarification there.
Thank you.
Time.
Councillor Cart.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor McHugh. Yes, I think with the backlots not having the 2-hour time limit would be important, just so that there was a place for employees and the business owners or the volunteers. Or it was even noted that there's actually a number of spas and some other businesses downtown now that there oftentimes are longer than 2-hour visits in totality. That was pointed out. So I think the lots not having the time limit makes sense as a location for those kind of longer stay employees or visitors, volunteers, etc.
Councillor Quinte.
Thanks very much. So does this 2-hour time limit that we're discussing, this includes Frankfurt as well for the on-street parking?
Before I go to Councillor Reid, Director Jardine, do you have a comment on that?
Yes, to Acting Mayor. Currently, no. There was, as detailed in the report, and I think came up in the previous staff reports, historically Frankfurt has had no parking charges. I think to add to that, to be able to manage that 2-hour parking on street in 2 separate locations would be very hard for staff, so that would be hard to implement.
I was just trying to clarify. So it's just specifically
Downtown core.
in Trenton Ward, because there's no other spots in Murray Ward or Sydney Ward where they have like on-street parking locations that require servicing or patrolling or fining people. I'm not aware of any, just want to make sure that I'm on the same page. And then if we're going to be giving out free parking, which we were not doing before COVID, and then we brought the free parking in because of COVID to help businesses, so now we're going to be giving up potential revenue with, hopefully the economy keeps booming along, and so now we're going to give up revenue I don't know, I'm having a hard time with this. So, yeah, maybe it is the cost of doing business, but there's many people who live all throughout the city of Quinte West, and maybe they don't necessarily come to the downtown. And if we're going to be giving out free parking, that means that the costs of policing it and the costs of servicing the area and the roads and the streets falls on everybody. So that's my, just getting at my point is we're giving up revenue for, what do they call it? The services that people want to use, they pay for it. User pay services. I'm sorry, I'm getting down to that. So that's what I'm kind of getting at. So I prefer that we would go in direction A, where we actually do a proper parking plan and we complete investing in new and updating our parking meters and software, and because many communities all throughout Ontario, and I know I myself, I go to Kingston or Belleville, or recently on my vacation we were in Pickering and Ajax, and you go to these parking machines or whatever and hopefully they work when you get there, to spit out your tag or your ticket or whatever you need to put on your card. So, and at the hospital too, you go to the hospital, you have to pay for parking. That's been going on for decades. So I can't see supporting option B when there's, in my opinion, a way forward that's looking to the future, reinstituting something that we were doing previously, and there's many efficient ways to look after parking and to generate revenue for our city. So I'm not going to support option B.
I believe Dr. Jardine had a comment. Did you want to make, and then I'll go to Councillor Reid.
Yes, thank you, through Mr. Acting Mayor. Just 2 points. One to answer Councillor Quince's question, another point of clarification. One of the important aspects of that, because Councillor Quince is correct, to go with a free parking system would obviously mean foregoing revenue. But one of the things that we obviously looked at in this report, which is different from the information that had been brought forward to Council before, was the expected revenue that we would be generating. One of the issues historically with the old parking system was the parking fees hadn't changed for many years. They were very low. They were below level. So one of the proposals under this option A plan would be to increase the fees. But that being said, with the hybrid system with free on-street parking, means that you're collecting from less spaces. So the scale of the revenue that would be generated by this system is relatively small in comparison to the services and the staffing costs to actually monitor and impose the system. So on that basis, if this was a revenue generating service that was coming in much higher, the staff report would not have been presented in this way. We would have been moving forward with the direction to tender and move forward on the project. But once we saw the numbers come in the estimates, we were literally looking at estimated around $70,000. One of the conversations, as Councillor Card mentioned, was even with that, that's essentially at the top end. You then build in things like possibly a parking pass system with a reduced rate for all-day parking. You've got volunteer parking. You've got charges to the city for operating credit cards and Interact cards or whatever. All of those chip away at that. So the revenue generation potential was very low in comparison to the amount of work that this entails. So that was the position there. The other thing I want to make very clear is that either way that Council goes on this process, it does not change. There's essentially two parts to our parking enforcement process. Our parking lots and our on-street parking, which traditionally was paid for. So you paid in the meter and we charged and provided that service in our downtown core. Okay, that's what we're talking about this evening. The other part of parking enforcement is the stuff that happens outside of the downtown core, or even potentially within, that deals with illegal parking, dangerous parking, overnight parking in the winter. All of these things will still stay in place. And if Council remember, not that long ago, Council actually approved some increases to those fines, which is reflected in this report, which again balances off some of the impact of the potential lost revenue. So this report and this change in system only relates to the paid parking. All other illegal parking or parking infractions outside of the paid parking will still be in place and will still be enforced by staff.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you. I feel that it's very, very important that we support our downtown businesses by supporting the free parking downtown. And I like the 2-hour parking limit on the main street. When I read Director Jardine's report that said the city of Quinte West can continue to receive an approximate revenue of $71,380 annually for the issuance of parking fines without the resumption of paid parking under the hybrid parking model, I felt that that really said it all there. The cost of putting in a new system would be probably quite an amount. And so if we're not going to get any more revenue out of having a new parking system, then we are going to have a revenue of continuing on with free parking and supporting our businesses. Because when we go to the east of Trenton or the west of Trenton, it's all free parking. And we do want people to come down and use our downtown core and support our downtown businesses. So I think it's an unfair thing to start charging for parking, especially when you're not going to make any more revenue with or without paid parking. So I will be supporting the free parking.
Councillor Card, then Councillor Ellier.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I was just going to briefly echo some of Director Jardine's comments about the fact that, and I am sympathetic to Councillor Quince's points. They are legitimate points. I think that if this was a $250,000 or $300,000 revenue take that we were looking at, then I think that my feelings might be different, but it's such a small top-level number. You start handing out volunteer passes, you start doing discounts for workers and business owners. The numbers get really small really quickly, and I suggested not only one of the other benefits of the 2-hour limits too is that if it's free everywhere, then there would be a lot less bylaw enforcement, basically relying on the illegally parked and some of those other weird stuff, the overnight. With the 2-hour limit, it brings the bylaw officers into the downtown a little bit more often too, and there's good outcomes for that too with some of the other issues that we've been having. It's going to lower graffiti and spray painting and maybe some other nuisance sort of issues like that. So that's why I partially with the downtown business feedback, I suggested that amendment, but it's just such a small amount of money. I just think that it is easier this way. Yeah, better.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Can I add? Can I?
Okay,
make
go
a
ahead.
comment? Thanks very much. I just wanted to reflect on the thoughts about the money. There are instances where we had citizens come to us for funding of their projects, and those were also small amounts of money, and they didn't get their small amount of money that they were asking for, and it was substantially less than $70,000. So in the report, it does suggest that the revenue is not huge, but it's still revenue. And if I recall from last spring, our citizens were wanting us to make sure their taxes were going to be in order, and this would be a way to helping all of the citizens keep their taxes in order by generating the most amount of revenue that we could. Yes, I understand there's going to be an investment, and the parking fees may change in the future that would alter the amount of revenue. So that is my point. Thanks.
Councillor Ellier, then Councillor Boyce.
Yes, just to leave the vehicle parking, part of this report also mentioned, and I know we've had some citizens bring up forward that we should be charging for boat launches and parking at boat launches with trailers and vehicles, whatever you're situation is. And I think the one suggestion was to just charge out of area users of it, which I think would be pretty tough to do if you were going to implement that. I just wondered if staff, do you make any comment on that? I can't say if you're going to, you're trying to support tourism and the use of our things. It's a double-edged sword. I understand, but it was part of this report, so I just like to hear what maybe your feelings are. And I know I've read the report here also, but for the public, maybe if you wanted to make comment, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, you're correct. One of the aspects of this was Council had asked us to look at the opportunities or implications of charging fees for parking at the boat launches. The report details the boat launches throughout the municipality, of which there are a number, both urban and very rural. And effectively, there's a recommendation is not to move forward in that direction. There's some hard issues to that, and there's some softer issues, which Councillor Ali has kind of referred to. On the more technical hard side of things, very, very hard to implement. Some of those locations, we don't even have the infrastructure availability to put in pay machines to be able to collect the fees. That would be a challenge. It would also mean a much larger number of machines. The capital cost of implementing the process would go way up. It would also, I guess, question the imposition of fees for boat launch use if council are still of a mind that we're not charging for vehicle use. There seems maybe a disconnect there as well. So on the technical side, very hard to implement, very hard to collect those costs. A lot of the boat launch use is obviously in the evenings. Weekends, again, we would be looking at additional staffing. So there is no way that you would collect the revenue. I think even without crunching the numbers, I'm confident in saying there's no way you would collect enough revenue to pay for the services, the staffing to be able to implement and enforce. And then on the softer side, there is the whole issue of whether that is the right way to go in terms of supporting tourism and the use of the waterways that is a big part of the municipality. Thank you.
Councillor Boyce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've had a number of urban planners over the years tell me that a healthy center equates to a healthy overall community, and I believe that one of our mandates is to promote a healthy, strong downtown. It was related to me that when you look at an apple, if you have a rotten apple core, you've got a rotten apple overall. And I think that the headaches involved and there's not that much revenue if we were to implement paid parking. I think the idea that we've come forth tonight is reasonable, and I'll certainly be supporting it.
Any further discussion?
I've had my hand up for a while, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Cosmos, and then I'll after you, Councillor Reid. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's obvious that I support downtown and tourism. That said, it's not only a revenue, it's an easy revenue. So should we do a hybrid model where we have the downtown for free with a 2-hour spot, but the actual municipal lots have this meter system? One cost saving suggestion is we go debit only and save, because that's 0.07, where the credit cards are at 2 to 3% fee. So that's one way to look at it. And respectfully, you don't see bylaw officers at all since we've had free parking. So you're saying they're going to be monitoring and enforcing these parking infractions, illegal parking, but just truthfully, we don't see them since the parking has been free. At least when there were an option for tickets, they were walking the downtown, they were a visible presence. Lastly, and most importantly, the Feed the Meter campaign is so important. And I realize that December's free parking, but the amount of people that still pay, regardless that it's free, and this money, again, is an easy stream to go towards an important cause. So I think we should strongly look at some kind of hybrid model, just because of the ease of the revenue. And also, truthfully, again, tourists aren't coming here because of the parking's free. They're coming here for other reasons.
Councillor Reid, I believe you were next.
Yes, I was just going to say that Councillor Kotsovas had his hand up, but I did want to, we've never heard what the cost would be to put in parking meters. I presume it's a horrendous cost. And last year, I noticed when I was downtown shopping in December, there were little cans and jars set out that said, please donate to Feed the Meter campaign. So, and people were donating as well, doing that way. And then the money was turned into the school boards for their breakfast programs.
I'll turn to Director Jardine for an answer to your costing. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the current costings in the capital budget, because we haven't really talked about that, there's a capital aspect to this as well. The current budget is $140,000, and that's really just to replace the paid parking machines in the existing lots in the downtown core. If the system was expanded into other lots or in other areas, that would be much larger, but currently $140,000 is the cost to that. I would just make one other comment maybe to respond to Councillor Kosovo's comment. Certainly with free parking over the last since COVID and over the last year, bylaw staff are not there collecting coin. May not be quite as visible, but I can assure council and all of the community, the bylaw officers are in downtown core on a regular basis, removing illegal signs, graffiti, other complaints, helping people that are struggling with homelessness, all of these types of things. So we do have a presence, and that will continue irrespective. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Sorry.
Sorry,
That being said,
I'll hold on, Councillor O'Neill. Councillor Constable, so I'll let you go first. Is that all right, Councillor O'Neill?
Sir, just Director Jardine, I wanted to clarify the public as well. And there was no disrespect to the bylaw officers. I wasn't commenting on their job overall, just on the illegal parking that I noticed being in the downtown on a daily basis. I wasn't talking about how they interact with homeless or graffiti or any of that. It's strictly, my comment was based on parking. There's so much illegal parking and things like that, that it doesn't seem to get the attention because they're not focusing on that with the free parking.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, Director Jardine, do you track monthly the charges for handicap parking, the charges for illegal parking, or is that something you feel we should be doing monthly to make sure?
Yes, I'm referring to Ms. West here in the audience. Yes, she says, yes, we do track that on a monthly basis, yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Reid.
Sorry, it's a very minor thing, but it just goes back again to the fact that not everybody does debit or credit. A lot of people do cash, and then you're limiting it. So now they've come in and there's parking that they have to pay for in the lots, and they don't have a debit card. So now they're going to get a ticket because they can't park there and use coin. So it isn't just as easy as saying, oh, everybody has debit. Not everybody has debit. That's an issue as well.
Councillor Card.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Very briefly, just for any councillors that are on the fence, the nice thing about this option, rather than putting out the funds and buying a bunch of the meters and the systems, we can revisit this next year or the year after if we deem it to be a failure. We could revisit in presumably before next year's budget, 2025 budget. But the point is, if we don't, if we keep it as free, we have the opportunity in the future to change our minds and start purchase for the lots, to start charging for the lots, charging for street parking, buying the systems to do that. So we can always change our mind. If we choose something else and it doesn't really work very well, we're going to be stuck with that equipment and that capital outlay. So we can always revisit this if it isn't effective, doesn't work.
Councillor Stedall.
I guess listening to all of the discussion going around the table, one thing just add is that I have recently heard a report on CBC where I believe it was Collingwood implemented the new meter system, and they're pulling them out because they're finding that it's more disruptive for the people that are coming in because they can't, the machines don't work, they're not taking their cards, this type of thing, and they're coming into to City Hall. It's actually making more work at City Hall for them, so they've decided that they're going to pull them and look for a better system. So there may be a better system that's out there. I'd hate to see us put, money towards purchasing these capital items and then find out that they're not of any use to us. I would like, though, to suggest, I would support that we could continue to go with the free parking on street, just because I know in my own experience trying to get downtown and find a parking spot in the first place is always difficult, let alone if then I have to try and figure out how to pay for parking. So it would be nice to try and get into the businesses and not have to pay for it. But if we can get a report back on the types of fines and things like that, if we could get those more on a regular basis, maybe that would help support to find out exactly that there is the staff down there and they are trying to look after things like illegal parking or getting rid of, vehicles that are parking when there's snow removal, that type of thing. I think that may help give us at least an informed decision that we've got something being looked at, and then bring this back again if there is a suggestion maybe after this year's budget. But I wouldn't be supporting putting more money into the capital budget at this time for parking meters.
Thank you. I've seen Mrs. West's head bobbing up and down. Yes, she understands, and I'm sure that she'll put something together and it'll come forward in the future. So carrying on here, any further discussion on this matter? We do have the motion on the floor. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Carried.
Opposed?
8. Thank you. Opposed, any? Motion is carried. We now move on to the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee. The resolution is that the minutes of the Planning Advisory Committee meeting held October the 19th be approved. It was moved by Councillor Ellier, I'm sure.
Yep.
Okay, I need a seconder, Councillor Card. Any comments or questions? Call for the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now moving on, we have correspondence from Marvin Rotan regarding the request for a motion of solidarity with the people of Israel. The resolution reads as follows. The City of Quinte West Council urges all governments in Canada to denounce the unprovoked attack on Israel and on innocent civilians by the terrorist group Hamas and affirm the right of Israel to respond and defend itself. That is the motion presented. Do I have a mover for this motion? Councillor Card. Do I have a seconder for this motion? Councillor Ellier. Any comments or discussions on this motion? Councillor Quinte.
As much as I sympathize with citizens of the world in this ordeal that people are going through, our city has a bylaw regarding people coming forward for public input and for delegations regarding city business. I mean, we have a federal government to speak to this particular issue. And I know our premier has also spoken to this issue. I just feel that as a municipality, that this isn't in the scope of city business for the city of Quinte West.
Any other comments? Councillor Reed, or Councillor Card.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I am willing to support the letter. Personally, everyone have their own different opinions on it. I think it's very important, and I'm sympathetic to Councillor Quinte's point again, because it's kind of its own standing document, and it doesn't really speak to any nuance or shades of gray with other people's feelings. I obviously was a terrible attack that happened in Israel, and all suffering of innocents on whether in Gaza or Israel is obviously a terrible tragedy. So I will support it, but it certainly shouldn't be read as not to also come hand in hand with the great sympathy for the suffering of innocents in the Gaza Strip at this point too. So.
Any further comments? Sorry, Councillor Boyce.
I'm just going to agree with Councillor Quinte. I think I certainly sympathize with all the innocent victims that this has occurred to, but I don't think we should be without perhaps further staff reports or things. I don't think we should be making decisions on this or affirming the right of any country to. I think we understand about defending itself and things, and for any countries, but I don't think we have provincial and federal governments that can, that speak on these things.
Councillor Quinte?
Just to add to Councillor Boyd's comments, not only can they already have spoken to this particular issue.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Sorry, Councillor Freeman, I didn't see your hand. Thank you.
I just hope that we're all sending very best wishes and praying for peace across the Middle East and in Ukraine right now. There's a lot of people suffering. That's what I'd like to concentrate on, is peace.
Thank you for those comments. I think we all agree with you. And I'll call for the vote on the motions before you. All those in favor? Motion defeated. Only have 4 yeas. Oh, sorry, my mic again. I apologize. I've had a good teacher sitting here. I've watched him do the same thing many a times. Proclamations. Okay, the first is a submission received from Alan McGee from Mad Quinte. The resolution reads, the Council proclaimed November the 1st, 2023 to January the 1st, 2024 as Mad Quinte Red Ribbon Campaign in the city of Quinte West. And further, that the Quinte West sign and the Veteran Skyway Bridge be illuminated in the color red wherever logistically attainable between November 1st, 2023 and January 1st, 2024. That is the resolution. I need a mover and a seconder for that, if I could, please. Councillor Neal, Councillor Stedall. Any questions? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Next is correspondence from Mrs. Kathy Rupert. She's chair of the Frankfurt Santa Claus Parade. The resolution being that the council proclaims Saturday, November 25th, 2023 as Frankfurt Santa Claus Parade Day in the city of Quinte West, and further that council approve all appropriate road closures. I need a mover for that. Councillor Reid. I need a seconder, please. Councillor Ellier. Any discussion? All in favor? That motion is carried. We have a motion for Ms. Suzanne Andrews, CEO of Quinte West Chamber of Commerce, with regard to the Trenton Santa Claus Parade, and the resolution reads that council proclaims Sunday, November 26, 2023 as Trenton Santa Claus Parade Day in the city of Quinte West, and further the council approve all appropriate road closures. I need a mover for that, if I could, please. Looking for a mover. I'm sorry, Councillor Reid and Councillor Kosovos. Any further discussions? All in favor? Oh, sorry. Councillor O'Neill, do you have a question?
No, I'd just like to discuss it if we could. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was happy to learn that Brian Swartman, that looked after organizing the parade for years, the Chamber plans to recognize, he's not going to do it this year, but they plan to recognize all his effort and work into that. And I'm very happy they're doing it for all the work he has put into it.
Thank you for that comment. All in favor? Motion is carried. We now have a proclamation request from Rosemary Embry, local member of Grand Quinte, requesting from 16 days, November 25th to December 10th, proclaimed as Orange the World campaign in the city of Quinte West. Resolution reads, the council proclaimed November 25th to December 10th, 2023 as Orange the World campaign in the city of Quinte West, and further that the Quinte West sign and the Veteran Skyway Bridge be illuminated in the color orange wherever logistically attainable between November 25th, 23 and December 10, 23 to further recognize and raise awareness during the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. I need a mover for that motion, please. Councillor Armstrong, seconder, Councillor Sharp. Comments or discussion? All in favor? Thank you. That carried. Now we're into printed information. We have quite a few of them there, so I will open the floor. Does anybody wish to bring any forward for discussion? Do I see any hands?
So moved.
So, okay, so moved, printed information. So we have a mover, we have a seconder. Councillor Reid, all in favor? Okay. Non-printed information, resolution, sorry, it has both printed and non-printed, so we'll do the non-printed now. I need a mover and a seconder to accept non-printed. I'm looking. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Card, any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry, on the printed information for the minutes of the active transportation, one of the things there was the train whistles on Second Dog Hill Road. And it's my understanding that that still will have to be approved by council, but it's not going to come for council until the next meeting on the 15th. Is that correct?
I believe that is when the next minutes will come forward. Yes, the next council meeting, as far as I know, unless there's a change.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I believe that is correct, yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, we passed that. We've had the vote for that, did we? Okay, wonderful. Notice of motion. Councillor Sharp, gender-based intimate partner violence. Do you want me to read this all for you, Councillor Sharp, or would you like to read it? It's your notice of motion.
Well, through you, Mr. Chair, you're certainly welcome to read it. I know it's very, very lengthy, but a very, very important motion, and I want to acknowledge the ladies, Natalie and Amy and others that are here tonight that have stayed because of the value of this very important motion. And really, gender-based violence and intimate partner violence is an epidemic. And we keep hearing the statistics, and you're sharing the numbers, and it was just alarming, you know, with Three Oaks, all the calls you continue to get, and I appreciate that you shared the hotline that is available to our community. But it certainly, and even when you saw the previous letter and request from Grand Quinte, you know, groups that are in need, and this motion is about getting the funds as well, awareness, and the funds to provide this funding to our programs and services to help our women and children and anyone suffering from partner violence as an epidemic. So I really think this is important, and again, Natalie brought up events coming up to, not showcase, that's the wrong word, but to share the importance. Wearing purple going forward in November is for, you know, wrapped in courage, those that may have suffered, you know, gender violence, but also all of us supporting, being aware and sharing the issue and working with partners and funding partners to provide much needed services. And we are so lucky to have our OPP and Inspector Reeves and our Wellness Committee and all those agencies that work with us year-round, many that are located at the police station, that, you know, with intake and assistance to those that are suffering violence. And isolation, there are many women isolated, and they need the community and neighbors to help and have a voice with them. So I just wanted to say those points.
I thank you, Councillor Sharp. I thank you for this motion. I thank you for speaking to it. I thank you, ladies, I'm sorry you have to deal with it every day, but I thank you for what you do to resolve the issues. And I'm certain that the motion's on the floor, that Councillor Sharp has made the motion, and Councillor Stedall has agreed to second the motion. Any discussion needed? Councillor Stedall?
Just to echo what Councillor Sharp said, I think it's very important, the awareness for, you know, for everybody to be aware that there are services that are available, and to make, I think that what the organization has done is excellent. Going to our community session that we had here in the council chambers I believe last spring, it was very informative to find out that, you know, these services are not just available, but to try and make people more aware that they are available, because there's lots of people that don't know, and they don't know how easy it is to reach out. They're afraid, and, you know, when you're afraid, you think that you're alone. And so it is, and I appreciate that Councillor Sharp has brought forward this motion that we can support tonight.
Councillor Armstrong.
Since your presentation 2 weeks ago, there's been an incident in Sault Ste. Marie, which they deemed that. I think, were children involved too? Yeah, so it was a murder-suicide, technically. And so they deemed it immediately that that's what the situation was.
Any further comments or discussion? And I'll call for the vote. All in favor? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Sorry.
New business, you said? We're under new or other business?
Other business, sorry, yes, okay.
Oh, I just wonder if we get an update on the Terry Cassidy plaque for the main lobby? Anybody know about that one?
I might be able to respond. I did ask upstairs at the mayor's office. The secretary's upstairs, Yvonne, and that, and they're looking into it. But I understand someone was telling me that they reached out to Campbell's Monument, and I guess they're way behind in getting these or getting someone to make it. But it is on the radar. Will be done sooner rather than later, as soon as it's supplied to us. Yes.
Second point. I had a number of people asking me why there wasn't a Boo Fest this year. Who could answer that question? Last night would have been an example of, would have been great for kids to be inside.
Any staff?
Last one. When was the last one?
Director Jacqueline, I believe, McGrimmon, Director McGrimmon.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Armstrong. We haven't done the Boo Fest in a number of years. The team has refocused some of the events portfolio. We did introduce a new event, the Boo Tour and the Home Tour, which has certainly been well received and has also engaged the community in part of that. We also have a number of other events that have transitioned into the fall timeframe that have certainly tied up the resources. So that hasn't been something that that has continued to be a focus for the team.
I've helped in the past, and there's been 2,000 to 3,000 kids attend that. I was at one at the YMCA on the weekend. It was very successful. Maybe consider collaborating with them because they've got quite an operation going there. Just something to consider.
Through Mr. Chair to Councillor Armstrong, we can certainly reach out to the YMCA. Certainly wouldn't want to duplicate what efforts they're making there with their event, but can certainly connect with them to find out if there's anything additional.
The difference was they didn't have like a trick or treat aspect, but they had lots of good activities. So if that was added, then it'd be very complete. Indoors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Certainly, yeah. We do try and focus our efforts in alignment with Council's strategic priorities, and maintaining a healthy, active community doesn't always go hand in hand with handing out mass quantities of candy and junk food. So certainly, we also did. Hey, don't judge my own decisions. Jeez. We also did in more recent years lose our major sponsor, which was Nestle's, for that event. So again, that was one of the considerations that was made.
Councillor Stedall, do you have a comment?
No, I have a few items for new business. First of all, we had Active Transportation Committee, and there was a presentation that was made by a Nick Church in regards to asking for traffic calming measures. He was public input. He wasn't a delegation, and there was no resolution or action on that. And I'm wondering if I could please put forward a resolution that we request a staff report back to Active Transportation Committee on the traffic calming measures for Leicester Road at the upper portion as presented by Nick Church. I'd like to put that resolution forward, and I'm not sure, will that have to come back to the next meeting, or is that something that we can talk to tonight? The Active Transportation does not meet again until March. That's why I want to bring this forward. Sorry, I wasn't clear. I know the minutes haven't come forward yet, but there wasn't any action taken at that time. So that's why I'm asking if we can somehow speed this up so that it would go back to Active Transportation in March.
I think I'll refer this maybe to CEO Clazy or to Josh.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, your motion is to have a report come back to the March Active Transportation meeting?
Correct.
Okay, so that should be fine. Is that okay with you, Chris?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just considering the policy that we currently have in place. I'm just thinking out loud, there is a process we need to follow, and depending on the options presented, I might need additional time to get all those, like a speed limit review done, public consultation. So I could bring some general information back in the staff report for the March meeting, but in terms of recommendations from staff, I really can't make that until after I gather all that additional information required as per our policy.
And I'd be fine with that, even if there was any kind of talk. I'd be fine. I just want to make sure that there is some action on it. I just felt that because at the meeting, there was nothing. There was no direction at all. I'm just trying to get some direction so that at least Mr. Church knows that there's going to be some follow-up to his points that he made. So if we can ask for not a full recommendation, but maybe just some points brought back to the next act of transportation, that's what I'm looking for. Does that need to be a resolution?
Does it need to be a resolution, or is it duly noted and Director Angelo will look after it?
It through you, Deputy Mayor, it should be a formal resolution.
Okay.
Can I?
You seconded, or want to speak to it as well?
No, I wanted to speak to it.
Okay, go. Well, okay, I have a seconder then, and Councillor Card. Go ahead, then Councillor Coons.
If I'm understanding correctly from recent events, the City of Quinte West has a speed limit control bylaw that's in place that citizens who have concerns regarding not only the speed of traffic, but other concerns about their roadway, if I'm understanding the bylaw correctly, that the citizens must follow that process to get their concerns in front of the Active Transportation and Traffic Safety Committee and or the council, and I believe that's what CAO Clazy and Director Angelo were referring to about the speed limit control. So if you get a copy of the speed limit control and you can share it with, I'm sorry, what was the citizen's name again?
Nick Church.
Yeah. So Mr. Church should get a copy of that bylaw, read all through that and follow that process. And then he and his neighbors can come to the council and or the committee with their concerns. And I believe that is what staff wants our citizens to do when it comes to this type of issue. If I'm understanding correctly, staff, please feel free to clarify or shoot my clarification down.
Do you wish to speak to that, Director Angelo?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe what Councillor Quinte is referring to is as part of our speed limit review policy, in there contains traffic calming alternatives, one being speed limit reduction to aid in the safety of residents on the street. Part of that entire process requires a petition from residents in the area before we proceed. So I think we're going to want to see that petition from residents in the immediate area indicating that they're in support of that before we start this process. That's typically how the policy is worded as we go forward. So that in the event that the majority of residents do not support in that immediate area traffic calming alternatives, one being speed limit reduction, then we as staff don't need to start the process of looking at alternatives and start the whole investigation into those type of alternatives.
Councillor Reid? Sharp, Councillor Sharp, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I chaired the meeting, and I think the challenge here is the gentleman came under public input. It wasn't a delegation, and he shared his concerns. So I'm trying to recall exactly. There were traffic calming or speed limit or whatever, but there was no action taken, and I think that's what Councillor Stedall is trying to achieve, is that to acknowledge what happened or get some action as opposed to waiting till March. But the challenge here is that our process, if it's specific about speed limit review, it's a very long-term process with a policy. And that policy it has to have a written number of residents. There's a deadline. It takes lots of public input, and that process can be up to 2 years. If it's specific to just some traffic calming suggestions. So I think that's part of the challenge. So my suggestion is that, we acknowledge that, some review has to be considered of this presentation, and that maybe the report is very general in nature, because we don't really, but we can still, as Councillor Quinte said, provide the individual with the policy about the speed limit review, which we have many that we're dealing with that are on the table. So I'm just trying to help but I do recall as chair, there was nothing happened after that. But generally, public input, we're there to listen, and that's what we did. But now there's this individual, certainly expectations, what are we going to do about it?
Again, Councillor Stedall?
Sure, if you don't mind. And I guess that's my concern, is that nothing was done, and it is a traffic calming. It's not trying to get speed reductions. It's just looking at traffic calming measures, and it's just at one end of Leicester Road, so it's not a large area. And I apologize if I'm not, clear or knowing what the process is. I know we just updated the new process for speed limit, and I understand how that works. But that was passed after this piece of input was prepared at that particular committee. So maybe perhaps instead of this resolution going forward, if staff can reach out and talk to Mr. Church and indicate what he should be doing in order to bring it back to the next meeting. It's just because of the length of the meeting's not until March. I just didn't want it to be left that he didn't get some kind of response back. So we could maybe not have the resolution go forward and maybe have staff just reach out to Mr. Church. Would that be easier?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think that's probably the best solution. I'll reach out to Mr. Church, explain the process to him about traffic calming and petitions if they're required, if he's looking at a speed limit reduction, and then let him make a decision on how he wants to proceed.
So there was a second item out of active transportation, and I believe it's being addressed, and that was actually a delegation that came forward, and that was to do with the crossing at the Trent River. I didn't see anything that came out of the active transportation that was being resolved, but I understand, going through Director Angelo, there may be something that's being pursued, or do you need staff or council direction to prepare a report?
Through Mr. Chairman, I'm just thinking to myself if I need direction or not. Currently, staff are in the process of negotiating with Parks Canada a maintenance agreement for the Jack Lang Trail that used to be maintained by the Conservation Authority, which I understand is not being done at this point in time. And I've been asked if the city is willing to take on the maintenance responsibilities of that trail up to dam number 1. And my initial inclination to Parks Canada was yes, it's a trail system that the city, I believe, we do not want to lose. But there are some costs associated with annual maintenance of that, which I need to bring a report back to active transportation or directly to council on that. Part of that, with this delegation that came to the active transportation committee, I can look at and have discussions with Parks Canada about a connecting link across dam number 1. And I can bring that all back to council or committee based on those discussions I can have with Parks Canada, if that's sort of the general direction council wishes me to do.
So that's fine. Do we need a resolution then? Yes, you want to? Yes.
I think if that's the general consensus of council, I can use that as my general direction. I'm already in the process of negotiating and in discussions with them about the Jack Lang Trail. Adding that connecting link across the canal, or the canal, is not an issue for me if that's what council wishes right now.
So I would put that motion on the floor that we ask for a staff report back.
Okay, that's fine. Seconded. Do we need a seconder for that motion? Okay, Councillor Quinte, all in favor? That is carried. Any other new or old business? Yes, carry on.
Sorry, that's my third one, sorry. And this will probably be a resolution that gets brought forward to the next meeting of council. I would like to put a resolution on the floor that whereas council adopted a new committee structure in 2022 and it was implemented with the new term of council in 2023, And further, that the intent of the new structure and meeting times were proposed in order to reduce both staff and council attendance. And further, that the intent of the new structure was to get further public input, that staff prepare a report for council which summarizes the change and if the objectives have been achieved, so that council can decide if they wish to make amendments to the structure commencing in 2024. And the reason that I would bring that resolution forward is because I've had lots of comments that have come back to me with regards to the number of meetings that we have, and the fact that we don't have really a specific committee for general administration and finance. I think we have 3 committees for that. Public and Environmental Services is got at least 3 committees. Parks and Facilities Committee also has a number of committees. Emergency Services has none. So I believe that there is some merit in the structure that we had prior to the new committee structure that we have. And I also think that we may have overshot by the number of committees that we have. And I thought that that's the reasoning for me bringing back this resolution for further discussion. It can come to the next council meeting.
Just, yep, just for council's information, we are planning to bring a report back that's going to look at our 2024 council schedule, as well as committees. So I'll get that resolution off of you and work with you offline.
Thank you.
Any other new old business? Moving on to bylaws. Resolution that these bylaws be read a first, second, and third time, and that said bylaws having now been read and passed, the mayor and city clerk or designate be authorized to sign and seal the same. Need a mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Quinte, Councillor Neal, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Need a confirmation bylaw. I get Councillor Armstrong for one, Councillor Stedall, two, all in favor. Confirmation bylaw. Resolution, I guess the confirmation bylaw for November 21st, 23, council meeting now be read a first, second, and third time and signed and sealed. I need 2 for adjournment, do I?
Well,
Sorry, Councillor Armstrong, I'm sorry.
I'd like to congratulate you on a great job tonight.
Throw money, please. I call for adjournment. I need 2 for adjournment. Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Stedall. And again, I thank you very much. Adjourned.